Even though they're pretty different, the Capital One Venture X Rewards credit card is in a weird boxing match with the Atmos Rewards Summit Visa Infinite card, but only for some people. Today we'll look at the basics, how they compare, and which one might make more sense for you. Big favor before we dive into everything though is to give this a thumbs up to help the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Starting off, let's look at the effective annual fee. They're both premium cards, but on the lower end of the spectrum. Both cards have a $395 annual fee, which feels downright affordable, especially with competitor cards jumping up to almost $800 and potentially $900. Like with all premium cards, you have credits and other features to make the effective number lower. The Venture X is a lot more straightforward. You get a $300 annual travel credit for any bookings through Capital One Travel. Whether you're into flights or hotels, cheap or expensive, this is pretty easy. In year one, you have the ability to hit the intro bonus, and long term you get 10,000 miles as an anniversary bonus. You get this every card member anniversary. As a baseline, this is worth $100, but if you are into travel, if you are into aspirational travel, it can be worth a lot more. For premium first or business class travel, I'd say 2 cents per mile is pretty fair, so closer to $200 plus in value for that 10,000 miles. But yeah, for most people, if you take 1 or 2 trips a year, this should be a break-even card. For the Atmos, especially for people comparing these two cards, the main tool is the Global 25K Companion Award, where you save 25K points when booking for 2. So you do need to have a player too, but that doesn't seem unreasonable. This 25K award is part of the intro bonus right now as of filming, and you also get this every card member anniversary. The core question becomes, what are these Atmos points worth? Let's say I want to fly from San Francisco to Seattle for Halloween weekend. Let's say you have some flexibility and you don't mind taking the 9 a.m. flight instead of the 11:40 a.m., then a refundable mean cabin fare might be 10K points instead of 17.5K. For Alaska now, all the prices you see are round trip, and some days are down to 9.5K. Yeah, for our purpose, let's say we want to do a round trip, San Francisco to Seattle, and we're going on a Thursday and coming back on Monday. The total cost for the round trip is 10K points and $11.20. For the same main cabin fare, comparing apples to apples, it would be $226.59. Doing the math here and simplifying, each Atmos would be worth 2.2 cents per point, but it does depend on the situation. For example, if you have no flexibility and you use the 17.5K number, then it gets a lot worse. In that case, simplifying, you have 1.2 cents per point, which isn't that ideal, but still technically higher than the 1 cent floor, which is the absolute bottom. One key point of points is that you want to have some flexibility. Even for this case though, we're not talking about anything too crazy, so most dates are going to have 10K or 9.5K. For the harder ones like Friday, I'd have to be willing to leave SF in the morning, which would be ideal anyways. Kind of the same idea for business class. If you're okay with last minute, you can usually find one-way business class for 75K points and $19. So right now I'm filming this at the end of August, and this is what September looks like, a ton of space until the 10th and 11th. If we head into October though, it becomes a lot harder. So there's one date here, or 2 dates. There's the 4th and the 5th. Space basically opens up either if people cancel or when you get closer to departure date. Looking at December, it's even worse because it's even further out. Let's say I'm willing to fly in 2 weeks, so September 9th. In this case, I can fly Japan Airlines Business for 75K points and $19, and I have 2 choices, either noon or 2 p.m. The alternative is paying $8,500 for either one, and that's what they want to charge. That's how much it would otherwise cost. The cash price doesn't necessarily get cheaper closer to departure like you think it would. Main reason is because they want to protect brand equity. A bit different, but we've seen luxury brands like Coach and Burberry do something similar where they destroy products that are unsold rather than having a sale. The idea being that if they have a sale, then people think worse of the brand. It also affects their other customers because people that are willing to pay or that have already paid won't want to pay the full sticker price in the future since they know they can just wait for it to get cheaper. The way that airlines deal with this is by opening up seats to people with points, generally loyalists. But yeah, there are people that actually do pay the $8,500 number. It does tend to be businesses that are fronting the bill, or people that are very well off who can't be bothered. For people doing well but who still like deals, they're usually looking for 1K to 1.5K per way for business and 2 to 3K for first, and that's kind of their would pay number and deal number. Your mileage may vary and adjust as needed. Okay, so what's that 25K Companion Award worth? With the numbers we just talked about on the low end, at 1.2 cents per point, that's $300. On the top end for economy, it'd be $550, and for business, it'd be $500. A bit of a rabbit hole, but the main point being that a lot of people are going to break even with that award. The other tangible benefits, like the Alaska Lounge passes, are nice, but they might not even matter. Side note, if you want to learn more about cards, whether these two, or pretty much any other cards out there, and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, askstabby.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, that the cards make sense for you, but otherwise it's a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Okay, so we break even, or it's a keeper, great, but why should people care? The reason that they're even competitors is that they're two of the best catch-all options out there. So yes, the Adventure X has 10x and 5x categories. The main draw though for this comparison is the 2x on everything. Reminder that there's no foreign transaction fees, so whether you're in Hong Kong, the UK, or even a lot closer, Mexico or Canada, it still works as a catch-all. Same idea of the Atmos, there's other categories like dining in Alaska and Hawaiian flights, but our main focus is the foreign, non-USD transactions. For a lot of people, this is effectively 3x on everything. For example, the 1 million Canadian snowbirds who spend their winter in Florida. When they're back in Canada, that's 3x on everything. Speaking of Canadians, a lot of points and miles people will get US cards of I-10s without even living in the US. The Canadian population is 40 million, it's probably a lot less than that number, but you get the idea. Looking at estimates, there's about 5 to 5.5 million Americans living abroad, and also an additional 1.2 million that are part of military and government. These are more permanent ones, so people living full-time abroad. What's even more interesting though is 18.1 million US digital nomads in 2024. So maybe they spend 3 months in Austin, then 3 months in Bali, 3 months in the UK, and so on. If you're a digital nomad, this card is well worth considering. Also business owners and just rich people who buy stuff abroad, this card can make a lot of sense. There's 23.8 million US millionaires, which is a ton of people, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few of them would shop in Paris given the easier availability for certain items and also the cheaper prices. Main idea though is that the upside of the card is surprisingly high, and the audience is also surprisingly big. Even better, if you have a Bank of America or Merrill Lynch account, you get a 10% boost. That means you get 3.3 points per dollar on all your foreign transactions. I have a love-hate relationship with Bank of America. I use them, I have their cards, but it feels like I'm back in the 2010s. It also doesn't have to be a premium account with a lot of money in there. It can be the base one with enough that they don't charge you the monthly fee. Note that this is a flat 10%, so the preferred rewards program with a 25, 50, or 75% boost does not play a role. That's kind of a separate thing. These ones do not come into play. Okay, so where does this leave us? We're basically looking at 2x, 3x, and 3.3x. At 1 cent per point, that's 2, 3, and 3.3% in value. At 1.5 cents, it's 3, 4.5, and 4.95. And at 2 cents, it's 4, 6, and 6.6%. On the top end, you do have to be interested in first in business, but it's still crazy value. 6.6% is insane. All of these are great numbers for break-even or keeper catch-all cards. So yes, you can do better if you juggle a lot of cards, but you might not want to do that. It might not be worth your time. Unlike a lot of the other premium cards, you also don't have US-specific credits like Uber, so it makes it a lot easier. If you are picking between the two, it depends on the other features and also how much you spend for the international category. There also is a case for both. In terms of the points and miles themselves, Capital One makes a bit more sense for flexibility, but Atmos does have a bit more upside depending on what you're looking to do. Devaluations also do happen, so worth considering. Taking a look at other perks, it becomes a pretty big divide again, and they're very different. Atmos is mostly around flights, as you'd expect. Think checked bags, Wi-Fi fee waivers, same-day changes, all potentially great and very useful, but might not matter to a lot of people considering the card. If you have a low effective annual fee and you spend a ton of money, then I wouldn't worry about these. Adventure X has Priority Pass and also Capital One Lounge access, which might be a big difference maker for some people. Priority Pass is a lot stronger abroad, so there is an argument there. Also, that's not just what I think, but a pretty common data point across the board, usually better lounges themselves and better food, and also less people that have access. In my experience, there might still be a lot of people, but the food is substantially better and tastier. So instead of cold sandwiches and salads, you might have actual soups and broth and noodles, wonton noodles, or laksa, and just tastier food. If you do care about lounge access, you don't just fly oneworld, and you don't spend a ton of money on the card, 60K, then there is a case for both cards. The one potential caveat is the final section, big spenders. Here it depends on your focus. So for Capital One, the main draw is guesting for Capital One lounges and Capital One landing. Moving forwards, this requires 75K across their cards in a calendar year. Note that even if you do hit that 75K number, you do not get guesting with Priority Pass. Capital One lounges are amazing. We just went to the one in Vegas, and they have caviar and great food, but less useful if you're mostly abroad. With the Atmos, it feels a lot more tangible. If you spend 60K in purchases in a calendar year, you get the 100K companion award, which could easily cover a business class flight. 100K times 2 cents per point is $2,000 in value, divided by 60K in spend is an extra 3.3% extra value for that first 60K in spend. A bit more value if you can hit it, but I wouldn't overspend to do it. Another factor is elite status. You get 10,000 status points for every account anniversary, and you also get 1 status point for every $2 in spend. You need 20K for Atmos Silver, 40K for Gold, 75K for Platinum, and it's going to be 80K next year. These map to oneworld Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, and Sapphire and Emerald are going to be the targets. So there are a lot of different benefits, but the main draw for most people chasing status, and the ones that live abroad, is lounge access. Sapphire gets you business class lounges for yourself and 1 guest. Emerald gets you first and business for you and 1 guest. Some of these lounges are pretty crazy. For example, the Cafe Pacific Lounge in Hong Kong, first class one has a private room that you can nap in or take a shower or bath in, which is pretty nice. We had the chance to go last year again since Mandy had Emerald status still, and it's still amazing. Mapping this out, you're looking at 60K spend for Atmos Gold, so oneworld Sapphire, which gets you business class lounges. You do have to be flying a oneworld airline, but lots of good choices in Asia and Europe. It's funny though, because that 60K number is exactly what you need to spend to get the 100K companion award. If you did want to spend your way to Atmos Platinum, so oneworld Emerald, it would be a lot more, so 140K, which is pretty rough and aggressive. To be fair though, this is assuming that you're purely spending and not doing any flying, which you probably are. There are a lot of ways to earn from flights, whether by distance traveled, price paid, or segments flown. If you are on team points and miles, you get 1 status point per mile flown for partner awards. West Coast to Tokyo might be 5K miles, so that's 10,000 points towards status for a round trip. It depends on you, but most nomads I know and a lot of travelers city hop every 2 or 3 months. You might be using the US as a bouncing pad or way station, but otherwise kind of hopping around. If you do pay for flights out of pocket, you can get a ton of miles depending on class of travel and distance. Still though, I think Atmos Platinum is more approachable and reasonable for business owners rather than normal people. Speaking of which, there's an entire strategy of ads given how things are charged. So for meta ads, so Facebook and Instagram, you can actually change the currency every 60 days to something else. There are rules, but it's also not unreasonable because you might be selling a product to a different country that's not the US. Especially for software products nowadays, it's not just the US. For example, let's say I'm doing a lot of ad spend for Hong Kong startup, that's actually pegged to the USD, so there's very little currency risk, and I'm actually getting 3x back there. Definitely not for everyone, but there is a case for marketers and worth looking into. Again, if you want to learn more about cards and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, asksabi.com, and down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a globe emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, what's your catch-all card? Number 2, how do you use your points and miles? And number 3, would you spend your way to status? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.